The light of distant stars filtered through the vast observation dome of Nephra Station, casting an ethereal glow across the empty corridor. Dr. Ethan Carter stood alone, his silhouette stark against the cosmic backdrop as he studied the engineering schematics on his datapad. His fingers moved deftly across the holographic interface, revealing layers of plasma conduit networks that snaked through the station's 8 concentric rings. Structural integrity at 78%, he muttered to himself, noting how the Sarkeen ore processing had weakened several key junctions. At this rate, we'll need to reinforce the secondary stabilizers within 3 months. The ambient hum of the station's engines provided a constant reminder of his purpose here, to oversee the upgrade of Nephra's operating systems. But even after 6 weeks aboard, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of being unwelcome. The Nahal engineers avoided direct interaction whenever possible, their elongated silhouettes disappearing around corners at his approach. Meanwhile, the Alliance security personnel watched him with barely disguised suspicion. Ethan's thoughts drifted to Lara, his wife, his anchor. 5 years since the accident that took her life aboard that private corporation's orbital platform. 5 years of questions without answers. 5 years of Alliance officials with their perfectly rehearsed condolences and classified reports. Structural failure, they had called it. But Lara had sent him data, encrypted fragments about Sarkeen ore properties that didn't align with official documentation. Data that suggested something far more deliberate than equipment malfunction. The soft ping of his communication device interrupted his thoughts. "Dr. Carter." The cold, precise voice of Brigadier General Zara Vorn filled his earpiece. "Your presence is required in Engineering Module 4. Immediately." Without waiting for his acknowledgement, she disconnected. Typical Alliance military protocol. Commands, not conversations. Ethan sighed, tucking the datapad into his jacket pocket. As he navigated the curved hallways of Nephra, the distinctive blue glow of plasma conduits pulsed beneath transparent floor sections. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, a fusion of Nahal crystalline technology and Alliance carbon nanotube framework, 5 kilometers in diameter, housing over 3,000 personnel dedicated to extracting and refining Sarkeen ore, the mysterious mineral that powered the most advanced plasma engines in known space. The doors to Engineering Module 4 slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, a semicircle of stern faces awaited him. General Vorn stood at the center, her Alliance uniform pristine, her expression unreadable. Beside her towered the Null chief engineer, his translucent skin revealing the complex network of luminous veins beneath, a biological trait of his species that Ethan had always found fascinating. "Dr. Carter," Vorn began without preamble, "you've been granted access to sensitive systems on this station based on your expertise. Yet we've detected unauthorized queries into the Sarkeen refining process. Queries originating from your access codes." Ethan maintained a neutral expression. "I'm overseeing system upgrades, General. That requires comprehensive analysis of all connected operations." The Null chief engineer's upper appendages twitched, a sign of agitation or possibly contempt. "Your assignment was explicitly limited to power distribution networks," he said, his voice producing the characteristic dual tone of Null speech. "The molecular properties of Sarkeen ore fall well outside your jurisdiction." "With respect," Ethan countered, "power distribution cannot be isolated from understanding what's being powered. The plasma conduits show unusual fluctuation patterns when processing certain ore batches." "Your assignment," Vorn interrupted, "was not to question established protocols, but to improve them within prescribed parameters." The tension in the room was palpable. Ethan recognized the familiar dance of bureaucratic intimidation. He'd experienced it often enough after Lara's death. "Of course, General," he conceded, though his tone remained firm. "I'll restrict my analysis to approved channels." The meeting concluded with thinly veiled warnings about security protocols and compartmentalized information. As Ethan departed, a young Hall engineer briefly made eye contact with him, a fleeting moment of what might have been sympathy before she quickly looked away. Back in his quarters, Ethan activated his personal encryption shield and retrieved Lara's data from its hiding place, a modified memory crystal embedded in his service medallion. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing complex molecular structures of Sarkeen ore under various energy exposures. "What were you trying to tell me, Lara?" he whispered to the empty room. "What did you find that was worth hiding?" The answer lay somewhere in these fragments, in the peculiar resonance pattern that occurred when Sarkeen was exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies. Something the Alliance and the Null were both deliberately concealing. Before he could delve deeper, a distant rumble shook the station. The lights flickered momentarily. Ethan froze, his engineer's instincts immediately alert. That wasn't normal operational vibration. His communication device chimed with an automated emergency alert. "Warning. Pressure anomaly detected in plasma conduit section 12B. All non-essential personnel evacuate to designated safety zones." Ethan was already moving, grabbing his emergency toolkit. As a senior engineer, he was definitely essential personnel during a systems failure. He sprinted toward the nearest transport tube, joining a stream of concerned technicians heading toward their emergency stations. The second explosion hit with devastating force. The world turned upside down as Ethan was thrown against a bulkhead. Emergency sirens wailed, their piercing cry mingling with the screams of injured personnel. Red emergency lighting bathed the corridor in an apocalyptic glow as atmospheric containment fields automatically engaged, sealing off compromised sections. Ethan struggled to his feet, ears ringing. Through the disorientation, his training took over. He needed to reach the secondary control room to assess the damage and help coordinate the response. He had barely covered 20 meters when 6 Alliance security officers rounded the corner, weapons drawn. "Dr. Ethan Carter," the lead officer announced. "By order of Brigadier General Vorn, you are under arrest for sabotage and treason against the Alliance." "What?" Ethan's confusion gave way to disbelief. "The station is in crisis. We need to contain the cascade failure in the plasma network." "The sabotage originated from your access codes," the officer stated flatly. "All systems you modified began overloading simultaneously. You're coming with us, now." As they surrounded him, Ethan's mind raced. Someone had framed him, using his credentials to trigger the catastrophe. But why? And who would benefit from destroying a station crucial to both Alliance and Null interests? The security team escorted him through increasingly damaged sections of the station. Emergency bulkheads had sealed, isolating entire modules. Through observation windows, Ethan glimpsed the terrifying scope of the disaster. Structural supports buckled, plasma conduits ruptured, and in the distance, a massive breach in the outer ring exposed to the vacuum of space. They arrived at a secure detention area, where General Vorn awaited. Her uniform now disheveled, a cut above her eyebrow still seeping blood. "I had my suspicions about you, Carter," she said, her voice laced with contempt. "A grieving widower seeking answers or revenge. We should never have allowed someone with your history anywhere near critical systems." "This is insane," Ethan protested. "I had nothing to do with this. Check the logs more carefully. Someone used my credentials. But it wasn't me." "The evidence is irrefutable," Vorn countered. "Sequential overrides of safety protocols, all traceable to your authentication signature. The Null are demanding blood for this catastrophe." "General," one of the officers interrupted. "Evacuation protocols are in effect. The command staff is preparing to abandon station. The structural integrity field is failing." Vorn's expression hardened. "Prepare the prisoner for transfer to the brig aboard the command shuttle." You're abandoning the station? Ethan asked incredulously. There are thousands of people still aboard. Essential personnel are being evacuated. The rest will follow as resources allow, Vorn replied coldly. Though I doubt the station will remain intact long enough for complete evacuation. As the officers prepared a restraint injector, the young hall engineer Ethan had noticed earlier, suddenly appeared at the doorway. General Vorn, she addressed formally. The chief medical officer requests this prisoner be moved to medical isolation. His biometric readings suggest possible contamination from exposure to raw plasma during the sabotage. Protocol dictates containment in the medical quarantine facility. Vorn hesitated, then nodded curtly. Very well. Escort him there immediately. Naliax. But he remains under guard until transferred to the evacuation vessel. The Null engineer, Naliax, gestured for Ethan to follow. As they moved through the corridors, accompanied by 2 guards, Ethan studied her carefully. Something about her manner seemed deliberately calm, almost rehearsed. When they reached an intersection, Naliax suddenly activated her wrist console. The overhead lights flickered, and both guards collapsed unconsciously to the floor. Neural disruptor, she explained quickly. They'll wake in 20 minutes with no memory of the past hour. We need to move now. What are you doing? Ethan demanded. Why help me? Because you didn't cause this, she replied, already moving toward a maintenance shaft. And because I've seen the data your mate, your wife, discovered before her death. Ethan froze. You knew Laura? Not directly, but I monitor all data streams related to Sarkeen research. Her encoded findings reached certain sympathetic channels. Naliax's large, multifaceted eyes reflected the emergency lighting. The station is being sacrificed to hide something far more important than you or me, Dr. Carter. And right now, you're the perfect scapegoat. The maintenance shaft led them through the bowels of the station, areas rarely accessed by anyone but automated repair drones. The damage was extensive. Ruptured conduits, twisted metal, and the occasional grim sight of casualties who hadn't reached safety in time. Where are we going? Ethan asked as they descended yet another level. Sub-level maintenance hub, Naliax explained. It's disconnected from main systems and shielded against radiation. The evacuation protocols won't register life signs there. You're helping me hide while everyone else evacuates? No, Naliax paused, turning to face him directly. I'm helping you survive so you can save the station. Ethan laughed bitterly. Save the station? Did you see the structural damage? The plasma network is compromised beyond repair. Nephra is finished. Not necessarily. Naliax's expression was intense. The Nephocore, the station's central AI, is designed with redundant systems. If we can reactivate it and gain control access, we might stabilize the critical sections. Even if that were possible, Ethan argued, why would you think I could do it? I've been here 6 weeks. You Null built this station. Because you think differently, she replied simply. The Null designed Nephora with elegant precision, but also with predictable limitations. You humans, you improvise. You find solutions where we see only parameters. They reached the maintenance hub, a cramped space filled with diagnostic equipment and emergency supplies. 3 other figures awaited them. A male Nahal officer bearing captain's insignia, a human woman in an Alliance engineering uniform, and a human male with medical equipment strapped to his belt. Dr. Carter, Naliax announced. Meet your allies. Captain Rethorn of Nahal Security Forces, Lieutenant Morales of Alliance Engineering Corps, and Derek Quinn, Alliance Medical Support. Captain Rethorn stepped forward, his translucent skin pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that indicated stress. Dr. Carter, I've reviewed the sabotage signatures. They bear the hallmarks of deliberate framing. Too perfect, too complete. Someone wanted absolute certainty you would be blamed. Lieutenant Morales nodded in agreement. The plasma conduit failures were synchronized to create maximum damage, while maintaining just enough structural integrity to prevent immediate catastrophic failure. This wasn't meant to destroy the station outright. It was designed to force evacuation while ensuring the station would eventually collapse. "But why?" Ethan asked. "What's the point?" "Sarkeen ore," Quinn responded, "unpacking medical supplies. The station houses the largest stockpile in Alliance space. Its molecular properties are far more significant than officially acknowledged." Naliax activated a holographic display showing the station's current status. Red warning indicators flashed across nearly every section. "We have approximately 12 hours before structural failure becomes irreversible," she explained. "The evacuation will be complete in 4 hours. After that, we'll have the station to ourselves, what remains of it." "And what exactly do you expect me to do?" Ethan demanded. "First," Captain Rethorn interjected, "help us understand what your wife discovered. Naliax believes it's connected to the current crisis." Ethan hesitated, then removed his service medallion and extracted the hidden memory crystal. Lara was investigating molecular fluctuations in refined Sarkeen. She discovered that under specific electromagnetic frequencies, the ore undergoes a phase transition that amplifies energy output tenfold. He activated the crystal, displaying Lara's findings. "But the transition is unstable, potentially catastrophic if not properly contained." She believed both the Alliance and the Nahal authorities were aware of this property, but concealing it for military applications. Naliax studied the data intently. "This matches fragments I've collected. But there's more. The current Sarkine stockpile in Holding Chamber 5 has been specially processed. If exposed to a specific resonance frequency..." Her voice trailed off. "It would create a chain reaction," Ethan finished, the implications dawning on him. "A weapons test disguised as a station accident." "Precisely," Captain Rethorn confirmed grimly. "And you, Dr. Carter, the widower with a grudge, make the perfect culprit." Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. "If we're going to save the station, we need to stabilize the plasma network first, then reinitialize Nephocore to regain control of essential systems. The primary access points to Nephocore are in the command center, which is now evacuated and locked down," Lieutenant Morales pointed out. "But there's a maintenance terminal in Sublevel 3, Ethan countered. "I noticed it during my system audit. It's limited, but if we can establish a connection, I might be able to bypass the security protocols." Quinn handed out emergency ration packs and medical stims. "We should move quickly. The evacuation is accelerating, and we don't want to be discovered." As they prepared to navigate the damaged station, Ethan felt a strange sense of purpose replacing his earlier shock. For 5 years, he'd sought answers about Lara's death. Now he found himself at the center of what might be the same conspiracy. But this time, he had a chance to fight back. The journey through Nephra's damaged infrastructure was harrowing. Entire sections had lost artificial gravity, forcing them to navigate in zero-G conditions. Emergency containment fields flickered ominously, struggling to maintain atmospheric integrity. Twice they encountered automated security drones, which Captain Rethorn disabled using override codes. When they finally reached Sublevel 3, they discovered the maintenance terminal had sustained damage during the initial explosions. "The interface is fried," Lieutenant Morales observed, examining the burnt circuitry. "We'll need to salvage components to rebuild it." "There's a storage bay 1 level down," Naliax suggested. "It contains spare parts for most station systems." While Naliax and Morales gathered replacement components, Ethan studied the Nephocore access architecture. The station's AI was designed with multiple failsafes to prevent unauthorized control. Failsafes he would need to circumvent. "I'll need to create a bridge between the Nahal authentication protocols and the Alliance override systems," he explained to Captain Rethorn. "It's not exactly by the book." The Nahal officer's skin pulsed with what Ethan had come to recognize as amusement. I believe we're well past by the book, Dr. Carter. Quinn, meanwhile, monitored the station's evacuation progress on a portable scanner. The command shuttle has departed with General Vorn and the N-Hall chief engineer. Approximately 60% of personnel have evacuated. The rest are scheduled for departure within the next 2 hours. With the salvaged components, Ethan and Morales worked feverishly to reconstruct the terminal interface. Naliax provided crucial insights into N-Hall circuitry, allowing them to create hybrid connections that Ethan suspected violated several technical regulations. If this works, Ethan explained as he finalized the connections, we'll have basic access to Nephocore's diagnostic functions. From there, I can attempt to establish administrator privileges. He activated the jury-rig terminal. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered to life, displaying the Nephocore initialization sequence. Connection established, Ethan announced with relief. Now for the hard part. What followed was an intricate dance of code and countercode as Ethan attempted to convince Nephocore that he had legitimate authority to assume control. The AI's security protocols resisted, identifying his attempts as potential threats. It's no use, he finally admitted after an hour of failed attempts. Nephocore has flagged all my credentials as compromised. It won't accept any commands from my authentication signature. What about using a clean credential set? Quinn suggested. Every active credential would have been logged during the evacuation, Captain Rethorn pointed out. Any attempt to use them would alert Alliance security. Naliax had been quietly observing, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the screen's glow. What about using original null constructor codes? She suggested. The foundational programming that existed before Alliance integration. Ethan looked at her with newfound respect. Those would bypass the current security architecture entirely, but they'd be archived in the historical database, which I happen to have access to. Naliax finished, activating her personal data device. As a systems integrity specialist, I maintain records of all original N-Hall configurations. With Naliax's constructor codes, Ethan established a primitive but functional connection to Nephocore. The station's AI recognized the ancient authority pattern and granted limited access to core functions. We're in, Ethan announced, studying the diagnostic readouts. And it's worse than I thought. The plasma distribution network is highly unstable. Multiple containment fields are failing, and the Sarkeen ore in holding chamber 5 is showing early signs of resonance cascade. Can we stabilize it? Morales asked, peering over his shoulder. Not from here, Ethan replied. We need direct access to the primary plasma control module in Engineering Hub 2. That's 3 levels up, in a severely damaged section, Captain Rethorn warned. Structural integrity is below 40% in that area. We don't have a choice, Ethan insisted. If the Sarkeen resonance cascade begins, the entire station will be destroyed, possibly creating a shockwave that could threaten nearby vessels. As they prepared to move toward Engineering Hub 2, Quinn's scanner suddenly emitted a warning tone. Alliance security teams, he reported tensely. They're conducting a final sweep before complete evacuation, and they're heading this way. We need to split up, Captain Rethorn decided quickly. Naliax and I will create a diversion to draw them away. Morales, you and Quinn escort Dr. Carter to Engineering Hub 2. We'll rendezvous there once we've lost our pursuers. Before they separated, Naliax placed a small crystalline device in Ethan's hand. This contains additional N-Hall access codes. They might prove useful if you encounter locked systems. The group divided, with Captain Rethorn and Naliax heading toward the upper levels, while Ethan, Morales, and Quinn descended into the maintenance tunnels that would lead them circuitously to their destination. The journey through the maintenance tunnels was a nightmare of twisted metal, exposed wiring, and the constant threat of radiation leaks from damaged plasma conduits. Quinn's medical expertise proved invaluable as he guided them through the most hazardous areas, monitoring radiation levels, and administering prophylactic compounds when necessary. These tunnels weren't designed for human passage, Morales commented as they squeezed through a particularly narrow junction. The NHAL maintenance drones are half our size. The NHAL never anticipated needing emergency evacuation routes, Ethan explained. Their engineering philosophy emphasizes redundancy over contingency. When they finally emerged near Engineering Hub 2, they found the area in worse condition than expected. Structural supports had buckled, creating precarious angles in what should have been perfectly aligned corridors. The hub itself was sealed behind emergency bulkheads. The atmospheric containment field is active, Quinn observed, checking a scanner. There's still air inside, but the radiation levels are elevated. Can we override the bulkhead? Ethan asked. Morales examined the control panel. It's on emergency lockdown. We'd need command-level authorization to... A distant explosion interrupted her, the shock wave rippling through the damaged structure around them. What was that? Quinn asked, steadying himself against a wall. Ethan's gut twisted with dread. The diversion. I'm guessing... Rethorn and Naliax drawing away the security teams. The explosion had the unintended benefit of disrupting power to the bulkhead's locking mechanism. With careful application of Morales' engineering tools, they managed to create a gap large enough to squeeze through. Engineering Hub 2 was a cathedral of technology, a vast chamber dominated by the massive primary plasma control module at its center. Under normal circumstances, the module would be pulsing with the regulated blue glow of contained plasma energy. Now it flickered erratically, segments darkening completely, while others flared with dangerous intensity. The containment algorithms have gone haywire, Ethan observed as he approached the main console. The safety protocols are fighting against deliberate override commands. Can you restore them? Morales asked, already working to power up auxiliary systems. I can try, but it won't be elegant. Ethan connected his datapad to the console, using Naliax's crystalline device to bypass the security locks. I need to create a secondary control pathway that ignores the compromised command structure. As Ethan worked, Quinn kept watch at the partially opened bulkhead. No sign of pursuit yet, but the station's getting more unstable. I'm detecting increased seismic activity throughout the structure. Minutes stretched into an hour as Ethan fought against the sabotage systems. For every pathway he restored, another would collapse. It was like trying to rebuild a house while it was actively burning down. This isn't working, he finally admitted. The damage is too extensive to repair from here. We need to reboot the entire plasma network from the primary distribution node. And where's that? Quinn asked. Central Plasma Nexus, Morales answered grimly. The most heavily shielded area of the station, and likely the most damaged, given the pattern of explosions. Before they could formulate a plan to reach the Nexus, Captain Rethorn stumbled through the bulkhead opening, his translucent skin discolored with what Ethan recognized as Null blood. The security teams, he gasped, collapsing against a console. They were waiting for us. Naliax. She stayed behind to ensure I could reach you. Quinn immediately moved to treat the Null officer's injuries. These are plasma burns. What happened? Brigadier General Vorn, Rethorn explained between pained breaths. She didn't evacuate with the command shuttle. She's still on board, leading a special operations team. They're systematically destroying key systems to ensure the station cannot be saved. But why? Morales demanded. What possible reason could she have for ensuring Nephora's destruction? The Sarkeen weapons test, Ethan realized. It needs to look like a complete accident, with me as the saboteur. If the station were saved, investigation might reveal the truth. Captain Rethorn nodded weakly. Naliax discovered communications between Vorn and elements within the NHAL High Command. They've been collaborating on weapons development outside official channels. The station's destruction would eliminate evidence while providing valuable data on Sarkeen's destructive potential. A new determination hardened in Ethan's chest. Then we stopped them. We save the station and expose their conspiracy. How? Quinn asked. We can't reach the central plasma nexus if Vorn's teams are actively hunting us. Ethan studied the hub's schematics on the console display. There's another way. The maintenance crawl spaces between the plasma conduits. They're shielded against radiation and run directly to the nexus. Those spaces are barely 50 centimeters wide, Morales objected. And they were designed for maintenance drones, not people. I can fit, Ethan insisted. Barely, but I can make it. The rest of you focus on restoring Nephocore access from here. If I can stabilize the plasma network, you'll need to be ready to reinitialize station systems immediately. Despite their protests, the plan was their only viable option. With Captain Rethorn too injured to move far and time running critically short, Ethan gathered the necessary tools and prepared to enter the maintenance crawlspace. The radiation shielding in these passages is minimal, Quinn warned, handing him a radiation countermeasure injector. Use this if your exposure levels spike. It will buy you a few hours, but the side effects are unpleasant. Morales provided him with a specialized toolkit and a compact plasma stabilizer. This might help temporarily contain any breaches you encounter, but it's not designed for major ruptures. As Ethan prepared to enter the narrow tunnel, Captain Rethorn grasped his arm with surprising strength. Dr. Carter, should you succeed, remember, Naliax believed in you. She believed humans and Nal could build something better together. The crawlspace was even more claustrophobic than Ethan had anticipated. He inched forward on his elbows, dragging the essential equipment behind him. The metal walls pressed against his shoulders, and the constant vibration of unstable plasma flowing through the adjacent conduits created an unnerving symphony of creaks and hums. The journey that should have taken 20 minutes stretched into nearly an hour as Ethan navigated around damaged sections and areas where the crawlspace itself had partially collapsed. Twice, he had to use the plasma stabilizer to seal hairline fractures in the conduit walls, fractures that could have instantly vaporized him had they fully ruptured. When he finally reached the access panel to the central plasma nexus, he discovered it had been welded shut from the other side. Of course it couldn't be easy, he muttered, examining the seal. His options were limited. Cutting through risked igniting the residual plasma in the adjacent conduits. But there was no alternative route. Using the smallest setting on his plasma cutter, Ethan began carefully creating an opening. The metal glowed red, then white, slowly yielding to the intense heat. Sweat poured down his face, both from exertion and from the rising temperature in the confined space. When the cut was finally complete, Ethan pushed the panel forward and found himself staring into the business end of a weapon held by Brigadier General Zara Vorn. Dr. Carter, she remarked with cold amusement, your persistence is admirable, if futile. Behind her, the central plasma nexus stretched in a cathedral-like chamber. The massive spherical core pulsed with unstable energy, surrounded by a network of conduits extending outward like the spokes of a wheel. 2 Alliance Special Operations soldiers flanked Vorn, their weapons trained steadily on Ethan. You know, I almost wish you had evacuated with the others. Vorn continued, as Ethan carefully extracted himself from the crawlspace. It would have been cleaner, but there's a certain poetry to you dying here, among the technology you supposedly sabotaged. Why, Vorn, Ethan demanded, straightening to his full height despite the weapons aimed at him. Thousands of people worked on the station. It represents years of cooperation between humans and the Null. Cooperation? Vorn scoffed. This station represents compromise and wasted potential. Do you have any idea what Sarkeen ore is truly capable of? The weapons we could create? The power we could wield? I know it's unstable and unpredictable, Ethan countered. My wife discovered that 5 years ago, didn't she? That's why your people arranged the accident that killed her. A flicker of surprise crossed Vorn's features. Your wife was collateral damage in a necessary security operation. As you will be. She gestured to her soldiers. Secure him. We need to complete the final sequence before the Sarkeen resonance reaches critical threshold. As the soldiers approached, the station shuddered violently. Warning klaxons blared, and the Nexus's monitoring systems flashed urgent alerts. Sarkeen containment failure in holding chamber 5, an automated voice announced. Resonance cascade imminent. Evacuation protocol Alpha now in effect. Vorn cursed, turning to check the monitoring station. In that moment of distraction, Ethan lunged for the plasma stabilizer he had brought. The special ops soldiers fired, but the station's sudden movement threw off their aim. Plasma bolts scorched the wall behind Ethan as he rolled behind a conduit junction. The resonance cascade is starting early, Vorn shouted to her soldiers. Accelerate the sequence. We need to be off station in 10 minutes. Ethan seized his opportunity. While Vorn and one soldier worked frantically at the control console, he circled around the massive conduit structure, approaching the Nexus core from the opposite side. The second soldier prowled the perimeter, searching for him among the network of pipes and control junctions. The plasma core's instability worked to Ethan's advantage. The fluctuating energy created shifting patterns of light and shadow, making it difficult to spot movement. He reached the auxiliary control panel on the far side of the Nexus and quickly connected his datapad. Using Naliax's null constructor codes, he bypassed the compromised security protocols and accessed the core stabilization systems. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. Vorn had deliberately destabilized the plasma containment field around the Sarkeen storage to trigger a resonance cascade. The resulting explosion would not only destroy Nephora, but create a shockwave of mutated Sarkeen particles that would spread for light years. A weapons test disguised as a tragic accident. Ethan began implementing countermeasures, rerouting emergency power to the containment fields, and programming a reverse phase harmonic to disrupt the building resonance. But it wasn't enough. The cascade had progressed too far to be completely halted from this control point. He needed direct access to the Nexus core itself. Taking a deep breath, Ethan abandoned his cover and sprinted toward the central platform. The patrolling soldier spotted him immediately, firing a series of plasma bolts that Ethan barely evaded by sliding beneath a low-hanging conduit. "He's at the core!" the soldier shouted. "General, he's attempting to access the primary controls." Vorn spun around, drawing her sidearm. "Kill him now!" Ethan reached the core access panel and slammed his palm against the emergency override. The panel slid open, revealing the pulsing heart of Nephora's power system, a swirling vortex of contained plasma energy surrounding a central, crystalline structure. The soldier's next shot caught Ethan in the shoulder, spinning him against the control panel. Pain lanced through his body, but adrenaline kept him moving. He plugged his datapad directly into the core's interface and activated the stabilization program he had prepared. Vorn realized what he was attempting. "Stop him! He'll ruin everything!" The wounded Ethan worked frantically as plasma bolts impacted around him. The core interface accepted his commands, but the program needed time to counteract the resonance cascade, time he didn't have as Vorn herself now approached. Weapon raised for a killing shot. A blinding flash of light filled the chamber. Vorn screamed as a plasma discharge struck her squarely in the back. She collapsed, revealing Naliax standing in the entrance to the Nexus chamber, a Nahal plasma weapon in her hands. Her luminous skin was badly damaged, but her aim had been perfect. "The others?" Ethan called out as he continued working at the core interface. "Coming," Naliax replied, firing again to disable the second soldier. Captain Rethorn insisted on helping despite his injuries. They're restoring Nephocore access as we speak. With Naliax providing cover, Ethan completed the stabilization sequence. The wild fluctuations in the plasma core gradually began to smooth, the erratic pulses settling into a more rhythmic pattern. "It's working," he announced, checking the readings. "The resonance cascade in holding chamber 5 is slowing. If Nephocore comes back online, we can initiate a controlled energy dispersion. As if on cue, the Nexus chamber's lighting stabilized, and the main displays flickered back to life with Nephocore's initialization sequence. Morales did it, Ethan breathed in relief. She got Nephocore back online. The victory was short-lived. With a primal scream of rage, Vorn, wounded but not defeated, fired her weapon directly at the plasma conduit above Naliax. The conduit ruptured, releasing a stream of superheated plasma. Naliax dove aside, but not quickly enough to avoid the deadly energy completely. The plasma caught her lower extremities, and she collapsed with a cry of pain. Ethan abandoned the control panel and rushed to Naliax's side. Her injuries were severe, the characteristic luminescence of Nahal physiology dimming rapidly where the plasma had struck. "Finish it," she urged him, her multifaceted eyes flickering. "Complete the stabilization. I'll handle Vorn." Despite her injuries, Naliax raised her weapon again, forcing Vorn to take cover behind a control junction. Ethan returned to the core interface, where the stabilization program was nearing completion. But the readings from Holding Chamber 5 remained critical. The Sarkine resonance had advanced too far to be completely neutralized remotely. "Nephocore!" he called out to the station's AI, now partially restored. "Initialize emergency protocol Theta-7. Redirect plasma flow from affected sectors to external dispersion arrays." "Warning," the AI responded in its emotionless voice. "Protocol Theta-7 will result in significant power loss to 47% of station systems. Confirm authorization." "Confirmed. Do it now." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the station, plasma conduits redirected their energy flow away from the endangered sectors. The lights dimmed as power was diverted, but the pressure on the Sarkine containment fields eased perceptibly. A furious exchange of weapons fire continued between Naliax and Vorn, neither able to gain a decisive advantage. Ethan used the distraction to implement the final phase of his stabilization plan, a controlled electromagnetic pulse to disrupt the Sarkine resonance pattern. "Nephocore, prepare for targeted EMP in Holding Chamber 5, he instructed. "Calibrate to frequency pattern Alpha 397. As the AI prepared the electromagnetic pulse, Vorn seemed to realize what Ethan was attempting. With desperate determination, she broke from cover and charged toward the core interface, firing wildly. Naliax, despite her grievous injuries, launched herself into Vorn's path. The two collided violently, tumbling to the floor in a struggle for Vorn's weapon. In the chaos, the weapon discharged repeatedly, plasma bolts ricocheting off the metal surfaces of the Nexus chamber. "EMP ready," Nephocore announced. "Awaiting final authorization." "Execute now," Ethan commanded, ducking as a stray plasma bolt nearly took his head off. The station shuddered as the electromagnetic pulse deployed in Holding Chamber 5. For a terrifying moment, the vibrations intensified, then gradually subsided as the Sarkine resonance pattern disrupted, the cascade halting before reaching critical threshold. In the sudden quiet that followed, Ethan became aware of the outcome of the struggle between Naliax and Vorn. The Nahal engineer lay motionless, her luminescence fading to a dull glow. Beside her, Vorn was similarly still, a plasma burn across her chest where Naliax's final desperate move had turned the general's weapon against her. The Nexus chamber doors slid open, admitting Captain Rethorn, Lieutenant Morales, and Quinn. They surveyed the scene with shocked expressions. "Naliax." Captain Rethorn moved immediately to his fellow Nhal's side, cradling her damaged form. "What have you done, brave one?" "What was necessary," she replied, her voice barely audible. "For both our peoples." Her multifaceted eyes sought out Ethan. "Did it work? Is the station saved?" Ethan checked the core readings. "The resonance cascade has been halted. The plasma network is stabilizing. We've prevented catastrophic failure, but..." He hesitated, examining the comprehensive damage reports now flowing from the restored Nefo core. The station has sustained severe damage. It will take months, maybe years to fully repair. But it can be repaired, Morales noted, reviewing the same data. The primary structure remains intact. With proper resources, Nephora can be rebuilt. Naliax's luminescence pulsed briefly brighter, a null expression of satisfaction. Then it was worth it. Her glow dimmed further, her life essence clearly fading. Quinn administered emergency treatment, but the damage from the plasma was too extensive. "I'm sorry," he told Captain Rethorn quietly. "There's nothing I can do." "Record," Naliax requested weakly. "Record what happened here. The truth. About Vorn. About the Sarkeen weapons. All of it." "We will," Ethan promised, kneeling beside her. "Your sacrifice won't be forgotten." With a final pulse of luminescence, Naliax's light faded completely. Captain Rethorn performed a brief null mourning gesture, touching his primary appendages to his central sensory cluster. "She will be honored among our people," he said solemnly. "As will you, Dr. Carter. You have proven yourself a true ally of the Null." In the days that followed, the full extent of Vorn's conspiracy was revealed. Nefo Core's restored systems contained extensive records of communications between Vorn and radical elements within the Nahal leadership, plans for weapons development using enhanced Sarkeen technology, with Nephora's destruction serving as both test and cover-up. The remaining Alliance and Null evacuation vessels returned to the station once stability was confirmed. Initial suspicion toward Ethan quickly transformed into gratitude as the truth emerged. The records Naliax had secretly accumulated, combined with Nefo Core's data logs, exonerated him completely while exposing those responsible. The new Alliance security chief, Major Elan, personally apologized to Ethan for his treatment. "Brigadier General Vorn's actions reflect on her alone, not on Alliance policy," he assured Ethan. "Your service in saving this station will be officially recognized at the highest levels." But recognition was the furthest thing from Ethan's mind as he surveyed the damaged station from the observation dome. Nephora was wounded, vast sections still uninhabitable, systems functioning at minimal capacity. But it had survived. And in that survival lay an opportunity. "We shouldn't just repair it," he explained to Captain Rethorn and Lieutenant Morales as they reviewed reconstruction plans. "We should rebuild it better than before. The original design had fundamental flaws in the plasma distribution network, flaws we can correct. The Alliance Engineering Committee is unlikely to approve significant deviations from the original specifications," Morales cautioned. "Then, we'll need to convince them," Ethan insisted. "The plasma conduits can be reconfigured with a branching redundancy system that would prevent cascade failures. The Sarkeen processing facilities need improved containment fields with multi-layered safeguards, and Nefo Core itself should be upgraded with distributed processing nodes to prevent complete system failure during emergencies." Captain Rethorn studied the proposed modifications. These changes incorporate both Null crystalline technology and human adaptive engineering principles. A true collaboration. "Exactly," Ethan nodded. Nephora was built as a joint project, but with separate systems operating in parallel. What I'm proposing is genuine integration, Null and human technology working as a unified whole. To Ethan's surprise, both the Alliance and Null leadership approved his proposed modifications. Perhaps the near destruction of the station had demonstrated the limitations of the original approach. Perhaps Naliax's sacrifice had resonated more deeply than he realized. Whatever the reason, Ethan found himself appointed Chief Plasma Integration Officer, tasked with overseeing Nephora's reconstruction. The work was challenging but deeply satisfying. As months passed, Nephora gradually transformed. The new plasma distribution network featured crystalline conduits reinforced with carbon nanotube lattices, stronger, more efficient, and remarkably beautiful as the pulsing energy illuminated the translucent structures. The Sarkine processing facilities were completely redesigned with triple redundant containment fields and continuous harmonic monitoring to detect early signs of resonance. Nephocore emerged as a truly hybrid system, combining Hall predictive algorithms with human adaptive learning protocols. Throughout the reconstruction, Ethan was heartened by the genuine collaboration that developed between the Alliance and Null engineering teams. Where once there had been suspicion and segregated work areas, now there was open exchange of ideas and shared workspaces. 6 months after the crisis, Ethan stood once again in the observation dome, watching as the final section of Nephra's outer ring was reattached. The station was whole again, not just repaired, but reborn as something greater than its original design. Captain Rethorn joined him, his translucent skin glowing with the healthy luminescence of a well-rested Null. "The Null High Council has approved your nomination to the Joint Scientific Committee," he informed Ethan. "You will have a permanent position on Nephra, overseeing future technological developments." Ethan nodded, grateful, but still haunted by the journey that had brought him here. "What about the investigation into Lara's death? Has there been any progress?" "The evidence recovered from Vorn's personal files confirmed your suspicions," Rethorn replied solemnly. "Your wife discovered the weapons potential of Sarkine technology. Her accident was arranged by the same coalition that attempted to destroy Nephora." The confirmation brought a complex mix of emotions, grief renewed, but also a measure of closure. "She was trying to prevent exactly what almost happened here," Ethan said quietly. "A weapons test disguised as an accident." "And you completed her work," Rethorn observed. "Perhaps that is the greatest honor to her memory." As they spoke, Lieutenant Morales, recently promoted to commander, approached with a group of new Alliance engineers. "Dr. Carter, I'd like you to meet the latest additions to the integration team. They're eager to learn about the hybrid plasma systems you've developed." Ethan greeted the newcomers warmly, noting the mix of excitement and apprehension in their expressions, the same emotions he had felt when first arriving at Nephora. But, unlike his experience, these engineers were entering a station where collaboration was the foundation, not an afterthought. Later that evening, Ethan visited the memorial that had been established in one of Nephora's central gardens. A crystalline sculpture honored those lost in the crisis, with Naliax's name given particular prominence. Beside it, at Ethan's request, a smaller marker commemorated Lara Carter, connecting her legacy to the station's rebirth. As he stood in contemplation, the station's ambient lighting shifted to the deep blue of the night cycle. Through the garden's transparent ceiling, distant stars gleamed like promises. Nephra hummed around him with the smooth, harmonious resonance of perfectly balanced systems, human and Null technology working in flawless concert. Ethan placed his hand on the cool surface of the memorial, feeling the subtle vibration of the station through his palm. 5 years ago, he had lost everything. 6 months ago, he had nearly lost his life. Now he stood at the heart of something unprecedented, a truly integrated interspecies collaboration that would shape the future of both civilizations. In the gentle blue glow of the garden, surrounded by the living embodiment of what could be achieved through cooperation rather than competition, Ethan finally found the peace that had eluded him since Lara's death. Nephra was more than a station now. It was a symbol of hope, a testament to resilience, and a promise that even from the ashes of tragedy, something greater could arise. As he turned to leave, the station's newly calibrated gravity momentarily adjusted, creating the fleeting sensation of lightness, as if a burden long carried had finally been lifted from his shoulders. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, new opportunities to build something extraordinary, and for the first time in years, Ethan Carter looked forward to facing them all.